So we're going to run through these programs. We're going to tell you right off the bat that at least, in my office, we don't consider ourselves experts in these programs. What we've done is really try to research the best things available. Many of you may already know some of these, but we don't think it hurts to go over again. We don't think it hurts to repeat them again. And in our program, it's embedded the contact points, and we will post both this program and we will post this PowerPoint on our website with the city. As you all know, the CARES Act was signed into law. There's $349 billion that was allocated to support small businesses. Most of these programs, as we understand it, are managed through the Small Business Administration. And the first piece of advice we suggest to all of you is contact your lender. That's going to be your lead contact for getting SBA money. Now, at the same time, what we're discovering through our contacts is that the lenders have some different varying application requirements. So it's important, again, to consult with your financial institution to see how they're setting up. We understand some banks are fully up and running. We understand some are still putting their programs together. So one of the things we find out is that you really need to talk to your financial institution, and that's the one that you need to have a relationship with. I'm sure all of you do, and I'm sure you're also learning that they're learning at the same time. So everybody, we need a little bit of patience as we deal with these. Thank you. The other thing we're advising is that it's a first come, first served basis. We've heard stories of companies that are big enough that they've had their lawyers or their accountants launching their programs for them. The banks that have really good accounts are launching those for them. So again, we really stress that you talk to your lender. We are hearing, and I'm sure you're hearing the same thing, that there's going to be a second stimulus. There probably will be additional money. We just don't know when that will happen and how it will happen. So we're taking what we have in front of us to move forward with. There are several different programs. The first is the Paycheck Protection Program. Again, SBA, we provided some details. It was opened on April 3rd. It's open to independent contractors and self-employed persons on April 10th. They're running it through June 30th. For those of you that are really interested, you can borrow up to $10 million, cover payroll costs, interest, rent, utility costs. The maximum loan amount equals 2.5 your average payroll. It's capped at $100,000. There is a repayment deferred for 6 months, and it can be forgiven. We're not understanding the terms may, so I think you'll need to work with your lending institution to understand that. And again, you have to go through a servicing lender for that forgiven loan program. And we certainly, again, reiterate that you have to go through the current financial institution. Again, what we're hearing is that lenders are developing their own sheets and worksheets. So just work closely with them as best you can. And again, we'll provide all these connections through our website so that you can get onto them. Next slide. The next one is the Economic Relief Disaster Loan. This is, in fact, a loan program. The 30-year terms, the interest rates are 3.7 to 2.75. The loans are up to $200,000. There's an emergency loan advance of $10,000 that doesn't have to be repaid. You can apply for both the PPP and the EIDL. You can receive the loan advance at the time you request. The tough one that we're hearing here is you must demonstrate credit is not available elsewhere. It's not clear how to go about doing that. Obviously, if you've not been able to get any funds from anybody else during the short term, this is a place that you need to go. We're not sure how you demonstrate that to both your lender and at the SBA. The express bridge loans are another tool by the SBA. I think it really focuses on smaller businesses, but you've got to have a relationship with SBA or with an SBA express lender. We're trying to get a list of those. We're not sure what they are. It is a certification through the SBA program, but it's up to $25,000 with a term of 7 years. And it's available over the next year. Again, all of these are meant to fit together as gap financing. I think the more we learn and the more the programs come out, the more we'll be able to help you think through those.
All of those links are being shared in the chat right now, but like you said, they'll be on the city's website.
Thank you, Delilah. The SBA debt relief, again, these are existing SBA loans that you all have with your banks, or you may have with an independent organization like Southern Maine Financing Agency. In these cases, they will extend your present debt. Right now it's out 6 months. I guess we'll watch to see how this process goes and what happens next. Again, your financial officer is really important. FAME is Finance Authority of Maine. That's a Maine-driven program. It's especially focused on small businesses. It's especially focused on getting you small amounts of relief. The loans are up to $100,000. They do have some ties with the SBA financing. If you have an outstanding loan, obviously with FAME, contact FAME directly. There are also some employee coverages in this program, so we encourage you to take a look at that program. The turnaround of that program was suggested to be 48 hours. We haven't heard of anybody that's gone through it, so we don't know whether that's true or not. And Southern Maine Finance Agency is our own loan agency. A number of small businesses in our community have loans with Southern Maine Financing. They will provide emergency loans up to $25,000. Will Armitage or Chris O'Brien are the folks that you want to talk to. They've been a very good local partner for a lot of our startups. And finally, some of you may have heard this, we have received additional stimulus money in our Community Development Block Grant Program, what we call our CDBG program. We are an entitlement community, so we get an automatic amount of funding every year that's used for a variety of programs related to housing rehab, service assistance, and economic development purposes. What we're contemplating is funding a small program that helps basically retain jobs in the mill and the business district. We're not sure quite what that program will look like. Part of this meeting is to gather some ideas on how to flush it out. Our general sense is that it would be focused on job retention and helping pay for staff through a 3-month period. We've modeled it, we're thinking of modeling it. We've begun putting together a proposal after the SBA PPP program, and we're really trying to focus on and identify businesses, small ones that fall through the cracks for any of the reasons I identified earlier. You don't have an SBA relationship, you've done all cash, so you don't have any loans and as part of your startup. you are having difficulty just filling in those finance gaps over the next 3 months. We're also looking at it as an opportunity to create some investment in the community that would create some not only a funding opportunity for business, but also is a brand or a new product that extends beyond the crisis. Examples that we've talked about are, for example, shifting to more of a wholesaling or delivery business, um, getting new technology that helps you move into a different area that can provide more immediate sales to homes in the Biddeford area. We've got a couple ideas that we've talked about, and I'll hand this over first to Julian to talk a little bit about a community share program, and then Delilah to talk a little bit about consolidated food service program and also a foundation sharing program. And if you could maybe Julian start with the community share, that would be great.
Most of you are pretty familiar with farm shares, where a farmer basically takes orders before planting his crops and then distributes that over the course of the summer. And the idea here is that we do something like that, but it's for makers on Main Street. And instead of produce, we're bringing goods that are made or that are sourced from Biddeford and delivering that to the community. So a way for people to stay engaged with the downtown, support local businesses, revenue opportunity for some of the people that are in the mills and that are in Biddeford that are producing things, in a way to kind of create some connectivity to the community while we're all sheltering in place. That's the basic concept. I don't know if you guys have some questions about it. It's basically, the idea is that we would we would take it's not very clear how often it would happen, whether it be something maybe every 2 weeks that could happen, where you could have a subscription model where a new box of things that were sourced from Biddeford would arrive at your house in some form or another, or be picked up downtown.
Thanks, Julian. That's an example of one idea that we're rolling out there. Delilah?
Hey, anything you want to add, Tammy, on that, since Engine may be involved in curating that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Julian for the great idea. I think it's a great model. I think, how it would potentially work for the makers is that we would potentially buy wholesale from them based on the number of subscriptions and whatnot. So there's a lot of details to be worked out yet. And Julian and I are going back and forth with some questions and answers to try to figure out if it's viable. It has to be simple. It has to be easy and safe. Safe being kind of the predominant feature, but easy right behind that. So Engine is going to help as much as we can with trying to figure this out. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Great. And that idea was generated through the DDC, and they had another one around food delivery. And I really appreciated both of those, because it's kind of taking this idea along with what the city wants to do with CDBG and say, in this crisis, what can we put into place that may actually be helpful after the crisis is over, and create additional income streams or have better capacity to handle changes in the market after this. And so the second idea that DDC came up with, which Heart of Biddeford would be happy to follow up on, but we'd love feedback, is to just research what kind of food hub or other commercial delivery services are being used in the downtown, which are the ones with the best rates for the delivery workers and for the restaurants. Find out if the restaurants around town would be interested in, kind of all getting on the same page and maybe looking for some economy of scale or even savings, but certainly getting everybody up to speed in the most economical way for the most restaurant businesses. So it's kind of a food delivery, just getting all the best practices and ideas together. That's one of the ideas. And then the last thing is something that Heart of Biddeford is brewing. So far, I'm calling it Share the Love, but we would just create a fundraiser on Heart of Biddeford's Facebook page for people who want to donate in a way that would both help restaurants, but also share the love with all frontline workers. So while money would be coming in, we would be able to pay restaurants that sign up to do this to deliver 5 pizzas to the emergency room at the hospital, or frontline workers at the grocery store, people in essential businesses, police, fire, so that those folks are all getting introduced to downtown businesses they may not have known. The restaurants are having a little bit more regular income in a little larger chunk. And then we're just showing appreciation for people who have to continue in pretty stressful working conditions that will only get more stressful over the next month or so.
Thank you, Delilah. At that point, that was our discussion, trying to provide a framework from which we can depart from, and we're open to ideas out there and would be glad to hear them.
In regards to delivery, could it be something besides just food delivery?
Sure, say more.
Well, I have a photography studio, and I've been doing a lot of online selling right now through my gallery, as well as trying to sell gift cards and things like that to help sustain the business. But since a lot of people can't get out or shouldn't be getting out, could there be some sort of delivery of not huge items, because I don't know that would really work all that well. But, like today I had a picture that I had to actually mail to somebody just because I couldn't deliver it to them. But it'd be great to have something just like, DoorDash, for example, is one of the food delivery services. Maybe they could do that too.
Cool.
Great idea. Thank you.
Lee, that's what we're talking about with the community share program. It would be makers, so non-perishable, non-food items, I think. Obviously there's, as we talked earlier, the devil's in the details, but the idea would be that we could buy theoretically, at wholesale price from you, and then, basically sell a box for a certain amount of money. But you'd be making the money that you would make if you were selling wholesale to anyone. It's not the same as you selling direct, of course, because you have your own markup and everything. But that's the theory.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, part of the origin of that was to also help support Engine in this time, because a lot of their revenues come from events and other things that are and programs that are obviously suspended. And so the nice thing about the CSA is that it's basically the spending that you're doing is supporting businesses, but it's also supporting nonprofits, and that's, I think, what really makes it an alluring model to do two types of good all at once.
Thank you, Julian. Comments, discussion. Remember, you have to turn on your mic to talk.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm a board member at Engine, and we talked about this a little bit before, just kicking around fun ideas as a board, not related to this. I think, Tammy, it was almost a year ago, but we brought it up again recently, and something that I think might work a little easier than a subscription could be a self-selection model. Like, you get to choose 5 of 25 available items, and that's your self-curated box. And so it meets the consumer's desire a little bit more than, here is exactly what you get. And now you have a purple elephant the size of a chair. All jokes aside, but just something that lets people feel like they're getting a curated experience or trying something new from a downtown that maybe they haven't had before. And that might get more people to sign up because they have a little bit more control. Sometimes I'm hesitant about subscriptions because they feel a little forced. But it kind of depends on how many people we get on board. But that was just my 2 cents. I love all of these ideas. Good job.
I love that. I love that idea. That's a great idea. Just thinking about through personally. Other ideas, other Other comments?
Matthew, this is Jim here, and back to some of the information that you had presented earlier. As you alluded to, there's been a lot of information shared about state and federal programs. I'm just wondering, for some of the business owners here, have you applied and has anybody received anything yet? Like that $10,000 advance, there's been a lot written on it. I haven't heard anybody actually accessing any of these funds yet. So, and I know these things take time, but I'm hopeful that these stopgap measures can get deployed quickly into the community, as opposed to people waiting to hear back. So I just wonder if any business owners have any tangible feedback yet on the application process or receiving anything, hopefully.
And if no business owner, Christine, you could probably add a little bit that just to some of the clients you've talked to. Anybody out there have any experiences at this point?
We applied. Sorry, Stacy, I cut you off.
It's okay, go ahead.
We applied, and we didn't even get a confirmation email. John grabbed a screenshot, and I'm actually hearing that in a lot of the small business Facebook groups I belong to as well. People aren't even necessarily getting a confirmation email. They've got like a confirmation number.
Confirmation email, is that from SBA or from your lender?
From the SBA. So the first one, the emergency one, you do through the SBA website. So you fill out all the forms there. You don't go to your lender first, or that's how it was rolled out. It might have changed because everything's changing every day. But yeah, but nothing from the lenders. I do know anecdotally of someone who was approved for PPP this week. So they applied through their bank, which I believe is Bangor. I think I'm hearing people having better luck with smaller banks than with like big national banks.
Thank you. We've heard a little bit of the same. I think you're best to start with your lenders first, no matter what. I think SBA is overwhelmed. And
I think that sometimes depends on how competent your loan officer is.
True. That's a good. Can't help you there one way or another. You're absolutely right.
I'm just making a statement. I'm not passing judgment.
Stacy was going to jump in too.
I think the biggest problem is that SBA doesn't even really know how these things are rolling out. Not with any level of, or not with a lot of credibility at this stage of the game. They received their guidance from Congress, and then it was, jam it into a code of federal regulation and follow those program guidelines. And they were shoehorning a lot of these things into existing programs. So it's, do all the regulations line up, and how, are we making them user friendly? So that's been, I think, the biggest challenge that I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's been pretty confusing. I did apply for the first one, the emergency loan, and I did get a confirmation number, but that's it. I've heard nothing. That was probably a week ago. I've heard nothing, seen nothing, so nothing. I haven't applied for the PPP yet because there's so much confusion about what's forgivable and what's not, and how they're counting staff. And because I have a lot of part-time or temporary staff, I don't want to get stuck having to pay for all those people if I don't need them. And there's no clarity about that. Nobody at the bank seems to know how they're going to count it. Nobody anywhere seems to know. So, I'm holding off. Supposedly there's another info call tomorrow that should maybe provide a little more insight. And that was through the, which one was that? There are so many of them. It was coming from the SBA through the Southern Maine Finance.
Yes, if I could add a question and answer sheet this afternoon, the latest and greatest, and we posted that on our website, but it does look like payroll includes part-time, full-time, and seasonal employees, but check that out, and there's a little more information there about the PPP.
Oh, good. That's helpful, Brad. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I've been looking for. So maybe that'll spur me on.
And it doesn't include the tax liabilities that the business itself has, right? So let's say you get this great loan to pay your employees at the existing rate, your business still has to pay tax liabilities on them.
The payroll taxes are not a part of the program, correct?
Right.
So you do want to be making money by employing these people.
Right. Yeah, that's the challenge. So yeah, trying to figure out if it's even worth it. And the other interesting thing that we're learning is that one of our staff who we laid off early on is on unemployment, and with the $600 addition to the unemployment, he'll be doing way better than he would working. So it's going to be interesting to try to get him back. So
yeah, that doesn't make some Republican senators very happy.
No. No,
Brad.
I know. So it's a tricky thing. I think everybody's trying to figure it out, and I think we just have to take it day by day.
Yeah.
Matt, have you talked to the bankers?
I've only talked to a few. I know Brad has talked to a couple. Brad, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
If there's confusion, then it's with the banks, then I would hope that the banks would want to take a lead on explaining it to people.
Yes.
And typically I would think that Saco and Biddeford Savings would, and then Biddeford Savings would, and then you also have Kennybunk Savings and Bangor Savings, and then you have the local banks. And then maybe they could put together something so that they could explain it to everybody instead of everyone being confused about it. And stereotypically, I would go to Saco and Biddeford Savings for the leadership on that.
Right. And you know what? I had some email conversations with Molly Gillero at Biddeford Savings.
Yeah.
It sounds like each bank is rolling out their programs based on the guidelines that they're getting from the feds. And Biddeford has a really good worksheet that for the PPP that will help you determine exactly what your loan amount will be and what will be forgiven. And that's another reason why we say, talk to your lender you already have a relationship with.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Danielle from Part and Parcel. I just jumping in here. Some of the experience that I've been having. So I have a full-time job as well as owning a business. So I've been kind of doing this twice now. One for a much larger company than my own, but here at the accounting firm that I work for, we have applied for the PPP loan, and we did that directly through I was actually Norway Savings, and they had their own online application, and you had to provide and this was the same with Biddeford Savings as well. They had their own, what Brad was saying, like spreadsheet basically that you have to fill out, and they want to see, based off of your W-3, they want to know what your payroll was for 2019. They divide that by 12, and then they factor in that you're going to take 8 weeks of that, and then multiply that by 2.5. And so that 75% basically of that loan has to be used towards payroll. And that is supposed to be the portion that will be forgiven. And the other 25%, they haven't quite decided if that portion will be forgiven if you use it for payroll expenses and your mortgage and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that's pretty unclear. But it was a really easy application process through Biddeford Savings and Norway Savings. And that was not the same information that I've been getting or feedback I've been getting from some of my tax clients who are having a really hard time right now if they have Bank of America or TD Bank or Key Bank. They've been having some struggles with those. So it's definitely something to say for having a small local bank where you can actually reach out to the president of lending or whoever it might be, just to try to help you navigate through these things. But for the most part, from what I've heard, I know somebody in Rangeley who applied for the payroll protection, and she was approved and will be receiving that funding by the end of the week. So it really is based on your bank. So that's just some of the feedback I've been getting.
Thank you. That's great feedback. Very helpful for everybody else here. Thanks.
Brad, what were you saying about payroll taxes not being part of it, and how might that make it different for nonprofits? You said something about you, or someone said something about you need to be making, you know, a certain amount of revenue from these people, and I'm just because
That was my example, Jeff.
okay, because we're
For-
not, no one's
for-
really
for-
talking about nonprofits in here yet in terms of the Paycheck Protection Program, and that's a
For a
consideration
for-profit
here.
business, like Biscuits and Company, if they weren't going to be open, but they said, okay, I've got this money coming from the government with payroll protection for 8 weeks of employees, it's like free money to pay them. But there still is the tax liability that that company has to pay. And so if they're just hiring people and the people are cleaning the building very well, no new income is coming in to cover that payroll. But for us with nonprofits, where we can keep people busy in a way that's not about making money for the organization, then it certainly is less money to pay the taxes than it is to pay the taxes and the payroll.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean. Can I bring something else up as well?
Sure.
I had mentioned this to Brad too, and I just thought, and it's sort of a recent example for us because we, as well as Heart of Biddeford and Engine, and presumably the city to some degree, and lots of other organizations have databases of people, whether they're, you know, funders or donors or people that have said, put me on your newsletter list or whatever. And it seems like there should be better, there's an opportunity there for some better collaboration of getting the word out beyond social media for events like this, for information on programs, for discussions around new services and, you know, food shares and all the types of things we've been talking about. Like we just sent an email out, and we don't usually email our patrons other than opt-in basis, but every once in a while in extraneous circumstances we do, and we emailed 2,500 people that we have email addresses for, and over 1,000 people opened that email. So that just, I mean, there's a lot of inbuilt, you know, trust with a lot of our organizations where people are going to say, oh, what, and now it's gotten beyond the, oh, this is just another email with a COVID-19 statement from my car dealership, who cares? So people are actually paying more attention to that sort of stuff now. So there seems to be an opportunity there. I don't know how we make it happen. The other potential thing is we have a, through PNC and I think one other organization a few years ago, we bought Access to Reference USA database, which is just about the best consumer and business database you can purchase. And I don't know if we have the, I'm going to look into upgrading it so we have email addresses through that, but we can identify through that and pull lists that we could do physical mailings or emails to, whether it's through the city or whatever. And we have access to that database. There's lots of ways to slice and dice the data, but we could be getting word out way better than we are right now about just through using, you know, we're doing a good job, city website and all the, every organization's social media platforms, but for people that are not online, which obviously there's, you know, we're making calls to patrons to just check in on them. And we're finding we have patrons that aren't even aware of what in the world is going on because they don't get a newspaper. They're not online. They just, we've had people ask us, what is COVID-19? What is the coronavirus? Why is everything closed? So there's a lot of people out there in Biddeford like that. Not, I mean, you know, more than you think. Plus there's just a lot of people who are overwhelmed. So physical mail still works and email still works, and getting the word out in some comprehensive way using the resources that we all have or that we might be able to provide centrally through this much larger database, which is pretty comprehensive, is I think a good thing to try to engineer in the next couple of weeks somehow.
Thanks, Jeff. I think that's a really good point. I don't know if you want to add anything, Danica. We certainly went through a process of trying to identify all the seniors in the community, and we've come up with a multiple group of lists, and now we've begun launching a phone program through our employees to as many seniors as we can get hold of. But I'm forgetting off the top of my head the different lists, Danica, that we put together for that. Do you have that off the top of your head?
Yeah, we used a service that was able to identify phone numbers for all the seniors in the community, and we're working on making phone calls to them right now. And we're also really pushing information to our public access channel because we do know we have a population of people in the community that rely on that for the latest updates. So we are working on it, but certainly there's lots of improvements that we could make. So open to all suggestions and any ways that we can all collaborate to keep getting the word out.
Thanks, Danica. Thank you. Other questions or comments? I figured all of you wanted to talk. You haven't had a chance to talk for ages.
Well, I got another comment, or
Please.
maybe I don't want to call it a dilemma, but there's also some businesses such as mine, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, who are startup businesses and pretty much started up with nothing. So they don't have a lot of, they basically don't have a lot. They don't have loans right now, but they also may not qualify for a specific loan. So is there anything that can be done for those types of businesses?
That's really what we're thinking about for the CDBG program. We've got about $220,000 of federal money, and you're the kind of business that we're really thinking about.
Okay.
You're exactly what we've talked about in terms of rolling that out. We just need to, the problem with our resources, it does come from HUD and it does come through a CDBG process. So it's lengthy for us to set it up, and we're waiting for guidance from HUD on how fast we're going to be able to do that.
Okay.
In the meantime, we're collecting information like this from you so that we can design a program that makes sense for you.
Well, I don't know if we could talk offline about it, or if there's anything you need from me, like any specific questions that I could answer or things I should be thinking about to help that process along.
Matt, can I add something real quick?
Yeah, please.
I think Mary Lee Taylor is in Saco, however, and I would imagine if HUD is HUD and CDBG, it's Biddeford-based businesses. So I would recommend maybe Mary Lee goes to Saco to talk to them about what they're doing over there. Is that Mary Lee? You're in Saco before, right?
I'm in Saco. I'm at the Saco. I'm at the mill where the deli and company is, so I'm right on the border. But I am in Saco.
Right.
It is tied because of the fact that we're an entitlement community to Biddeford only. My understanding, and Brad may be able to add something to this, my understanding is that Saco's looking at a way to utilize their TIF funds to do the same thing. Denise Clavette is the contact over there. Along
Denise.
with Jesse. Help! I'm going brain dead on Jesse's last name, Brad.
Berna. Jessa Berna.
But Denise's last name was Clavette. Do you know how to spell that?
I just put it in the notes, the chat there, her email.
Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Delilah.
Yeah.
Will I be able to access these notes afterwards, or?
Yeah, I'll download the chat and the video, and we'll email it to everybody on this call, who signed up for this call, as well as through.
Okay. And you can hit the three buttons, the three dots in the bottom right corner, and save it to your desktop right now if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm on a tablet, not a desktop.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work.
Folks, Treasury just announced that they're going after an additional $250 billion to replenish the small business coronavirus program. Because of the over-subscription to the program. So that's good news.
And it also may be getting to explain why you're getting slow responses.
Yeah, I've got a question. This is Walter from Walter's Watch and Jewelry Repair. I am a single member LLC corporation, no employees, so the PPP loan wouldn't be forgiven for me, and hopefully I won't need any kind of loan. But what I'm trying to find information about is whether I'm eligible for the unemployment insurance, and the main website still says they're still waiting for the federal information. So I don't even know if I'm eligible. So I just have to wait, I guess, unless someone knows the answer at this point.
I can look to both my staffs. I don't think we have any clear direction on the sole proprietor at this stage.
Not yet.
That would still be my designation as sole proprietor because it's an LLC.
That I don't know.
I wasn't sure about that. I
Yeah,
thought,
no, that's an interesting twist I'm not sure about.
okay,
Walter.
yes.
Hi, this is Wendy Brown from the City Theater. I was taking a look at the PPP for us, but there is provision in that one for sole proprietors. So you might want to look a little
In the
closer
PPP,
at
yes,
that.
but I'm talking
Yeah.
about unemployment insurance.
No, I understand what you're asking
Yeah.
about, but you're
Yeah.
asking about the ability to fund yourself, I'm assuming, because you're a sole proprietor. And the
Correct.
PPP does have a provision for that. You
Okay.
can get funding, it sounds like, and it would be a loan, the same kind of thing that we would
Right.
be getting if we were going to do it
Yeah.
with as a nonprofit.
But I
So
don't
I would,
really need a loan, and hopefully, unless we're shut
well,
for
it would be
6 months.
forgiven if you, right, the loan is forgiven.
But I don't
can
have
be forgiven.
employees for it to be
But
forgiven.
you're an employee, is what I'm saying, is
Oh,
they
yeah.
would fund
Oh,
you
okay.
as your employee.
Only if he has
You're
a
your own
payroll.
employee.
Only if he has a payroll.
I would take a look at that one though. I was self-employed for years, and I was not eligible for unemployment under any circumstances because I did not pay into unemployment as a sole proprietor.
Right, and I don't either. So I don't
Right.
have payroll. I have owner's draw that I take money out, but it's all part of my IRS.
Yep.
Walter,
And I have to say,
somebody, I work for an accounting firm, and so right now I'm going through that a lot with our tax clients, and we have many people who aren't like an 1120. They file a 1065 return. I'm not sure what it is that you file, but that's the information that they're going to use. They're going to want some kind of a profit and loss statement, and then they're also
That I have, yes.
Yep, and then they're also going to want your tax returns if you don't actually have a payroll. So they'll just use all of the information off of your tax returns, and that is it's still kind of undecided. So you'll just want to reach out to your bank if it is something that you want to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. Even though you may not need a loan necessarily, it's something that you can apply for it, and if you get it, a certain amount of that, and they'll tell you how much before you take it out, can be forgiven. So you'll just want to talk to your bank about it first before, because it's my understanding also that you may not be able to qualify for unemployment, but this is a very different circumstance. So there are provisions right now for people who are self-employed. If you pay a self-employment tax, which I'm sure you do on your taxes.
Well, I file a 1040, with the business as included in there. So I don't, on a different, schedule, but it's all just one personal tax form.
Tax return. So you have a Schedule C is what that sounds like. And so you
Probably,
pay Yep, so you pay a self-employment tax, and then
I'm sure the money is taxed, yes.
Yep, and then that's what they'll base all of this off of. So again, if it's the payroll protection program that you want to discuss, then you'll want to do that with your bank. But they're still working out the kinks with unemployment for people who are sole proprietors or 1099 subcontractors. So unfortunately, that's my understanding, that there's not really any firm rule yet. So.
Okay, thank you.
And if I remember correctly, that sole proprietors and self-employed can apply for the PPP starting this coming Friday, April 10th. It was open to other small businesses on the 3rd, but the 10th for sole proprietors and the self-employed.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Good point. Other questions, other comments? Hearing none, I want to thank you all for participating. We're going to try to do this more. We will, as our staff, continue to work with Jim and Delilah to collect the most up-to-date information that we can get. I know that they're all getting a little screen crazy because things are changing so often, and we have to keep track of things so often. And yet I feel like we heard more from participants here about the programs and how they're really rolling out than we would have talking to our federal constituents. So I think these kinds of exchanges are really helpful, because I think we all can take away a piece of it and a focus. We will begin working on our local program. Walter, you kind of fit the bill for us. So, I think Brad may be out to talk to you personally, just to build some framework around the program. Delilah, anything that you want to add? Julian?
I will reach out to restaurants for those 2 questions about coordinating delivery programs and the Share the Love program for frontline workers.
Julian?
I also just want to mention too, if anybody, I kind of do double duty, but if there's anybody that wants to reach out to me directly for some more information, kind of tax wise, or how I can help if you need help applying for this loan or whatever information, we have a lot flowing through my business, not part and parcel, but the accounting firm that I work for. So I'm able to help in whatever way that I can. I can't guarantee that I will be able to help, but certainly I can pass along whatever information or helping you set up something. If that's what you need, we are definitely here to do that. So I would be happy to help.
How should they contact you?
You can send me an email. That would probably be the easiest way. I'll type my email here into the bottom or into this little chat thing. And yeah, you guys can have that and shoot me an email if that works. And then if you want to set up a call or FaceTime, whatever it is, we could do that as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And one of the things that's going to help the city help you folks is if we hear from you early and often about some of the challenges that you're facing. We are working to put together programs as quickly as we possibly can, and put together resources and things like that. So if there are specific needs that you're not seeing and get addressed, please let us know so that we can work with the delegation to get that information to them so that they can be putting those into the next acts and bills and things like that. That will absolutely help us help you in the long run.
Thank you, Christine.
Hey, Matthew and Christine, just to build on that, thank you for this. And obviously the focus was, and a very important focus here, the business support. But I'm just wondering, as kind of a resident, what are you hearing at City Hall from individuals? How are, beyond kind of employees of the businesses and the owners and all these challenges, are you getting a lot more calls in for general assistance? Are there specific challenges, food, housing, anything? And the reason I ask, that I'm part of a Rotary organization that might have some emergency funds available potentially too. And one of the questions that came up the other day is we imagine there's a lot of pain right now in the community, but there's really no focal point for knowing what that is other than maybe the city, I'm thinking. Have you been hearing from lots of individuals that are challenged right now?
Danica, do you want to take a stab at that? Yeah, our general assistance office has been busy. And we have been coordinating with an awful lot of groups and individuals, but I think Danica could answer that a little better than I can.
Yeah, I know not as much more than Matt. Our general assistance office has been busy. They are taking calls, even things that can't be necessarily funded by general assistance. We are working with volunteers. So if people have transportation needs and food needs and things like that, we are sending them to the right places. I don't know specifically what the biggest needs have been. I think we're just starting to see the beginning of people calling in for those kinds of things, and I think it is going to pick up as the weeks continue. So hope that helps.
I can tell you that Mainers Together is a community-based response group that's been helping out, delivering packages, food, and maybe other things that are needed to people who either don't have transportation or don't have money. And they're affiliated somehow with the Maine People's Alliance of Maine, but it's called Mainers Together. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it before.
Yeah, you can sign up to, if you have a request, and you can also sign up to become part of the Biddeford Saco team that's answering those requests, like picking up from the grocery store or the, pick up prescriptions and stuff.
Yeah.
And Seeds of Hope and Biddeford Food Pantry all need more volunteers, and always cash.
Mm-hmm. And I would add the volunteer issue has really been pushed because so many of their volunteers were older, and they really needed to create some distance. So that is, we know that we have some city workers that are actually helping and distributing some of that food. But the more volunteers, the better.
So who do they contact if they're looking to volunteer?
There's
Go ahead, Delilah.
on Seeds of Hope, you can go to their Facebook page. Shirley's email address is there. Actually, there's a link now for signing up, and they particularly like if you can get a team of 4 willing to show up for a morning from 8 till noon. So Shirley doesn't have to do a whole bunch of volunteer coordination. And then there's a phone number on the Biddeford Food Pantry Facebook page that you just call Don and tell him you're available.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions? Well, thank you all for doing this. We will do this again, and we will try to bring as much information we can. And frankly, we're going to take a bunch that we learned and do some further mining ourselves. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
do we need to take up a collection for you for your shaving?
I'm a Biddeford economic development wannabe. I'm trying to take after Brad and Matthew. I have a few more weeks to go, though.
All right.
Which it sounds like we all have a few more weeks here, but
Yeah.
let's hope May is better than April here. But
All right. That's all I got.
thanks for shaming.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.